We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Leverage, the magical arts of positive. We emphasize positive motivation and manipulation. So how you doing? Are you asking people better questions? Are you listening at a whole new internalized level? Are you seeing things that you've never seen before? Are your intentions being purified? Today's lesson, think, is like I've been so looking forward to this. Peter, why is it that people often think they think, but maybe they're not thinking nearly as much as they think they're thinking?
I think the initial response is to react as opposed to internalize. So they think by reacting.
So they actually are reacting, but they're thinking maybe when they're really not. And that's, I think, where the engineered clarity comes in, the process of thinking differently that brings satisfaction, where we desire it. And so when we look at what does this mean, anytime we're selling anything, ourselves, a concept, our belief, our values, our product, our service, anything, people are looking for two things: intentions and our capabilities. And what's tricky is, as we've learned, the different personalities, we are learning that different personalities internalize things in a different way. And what causes one person to think our intentions are good, another person will think they're bad. What creates, one person to think our capabilities are high will cause our capabilities, another person to think our capabilities is low. And that's where the questions and then listening in a whole different way is so important. So we've gone through, the internalization model. You've done that right at the beginning. So are you internalizing lesson 1? If not, go back over it again. Are you internalizing, you and I internalizing lesson 2, listening, and then lesson 3 is seeing, and lesson 4 is think. So this is not brain surgery or rocket science, but it kind of is. Question, listen, see, and think. And then all for the benefit of mutual benefit of leverage. So when we look at thinking, it helps us to not only increase our capabilities, our capacity, but helps people to see that as well. So sometimes we have capabilities, capacity that we don't communicate to other people, and so they don't think we can do things. So if we don't ask the right questions, and if we don't listen, see, and think, we will not gain leverage we need to create a mutually beneficial solution and being able to go through it. Now again, remember the internalization lesson. So when we're looking at thinking, we need to internalize this, and if we're saying, yeah, I've got that, no, maybe not. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, maybe not. Like an awakening, have we discovered those questions around us that will create an awakening moment in what we're doing? So think like a analytic, which is thinking details, and so they think in details. And so with your art mentor and 2 art buddies to learn how to leverage the strengths and weaknesses of the analytic frequency. And then we look at, the amiable personality, thinking connection. So thinking details is very different than thinking connection. It's a totally different thought process. So work with your art mentor and 2 art buddies to learn how to leverage the strengths and weaknesses of the amiable frequency. And then think for the expressive, think energy, which again is very different than people and very different than the task or the specific pieces, thinking details. Work with the art mentor and 2 art buddies to learn how to leverage the strengths and weaknesses of the expressive frequency. And then we're going to learn today how to think power, the big picture. Work with your art mentor and 2 art buddies to learn how to leverage the strengths and weaknesses of the driver frequency. Tom, why do you think that, how do you help people around you to think differently about a situation? Could be personal, professional, any of those things.
Oh, well, basically, I challenge them. If I'll give you a couple examples. If they come to me with an issue saying, how do I do this? It's no. My folks know they don't come to me without a solution. So they've got to think through the process before they come and sit down, and then we'll go through and take a look at what they're suggesting and see what the issue is, what the outcome is they're looking for, and then we make a decision, move on from there. The other situation is just it's kind of the same process, is that I can't think of asking any kind of questions without thinking through the process as to what would I do if I were in my shoes. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
well, I have a sneaking suspicion that when we get into the full session and the Q&A, that we're going to be discussing some things that are going to be really interesting. Like when we talk about thinking like the analytic, what's the frequency of an analytic? What's the pros and the cons? And then thinking like the amiable, what's the frequency of the amiable? So we have a spectrum where we can go through in details, connection, caring, fun, energy, and then power and big picture. And the capability that not only that we have, but imagine, this is why we've talked about like every single person in our organization you're in, every team member. Imagine if every team member understood, internalized the strength of each of these different personalities and could look at any given situation and know on their own, without you directing them or anybody directing them, that their strength is becoming a weakness and they need to adjust and modify. Imagine what would happen. So we're going to take a short pause here, and then we're going to go in